What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with the overall markets, why the market saw a very nice push in the morning, getting very close to all-time highs, only to get a big rug pull after Donald Trump, our president, has announced something very important. He is saying that he will announce reciprocal tariffs next week. That could cause a very big move in the broader markets. So I'll talk about what this means for us moving forward, what has Trump said, and what this means for these different countries. Now, this may affect the US and our stock market, but just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. Deposit $100 and you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. Deposits $2,000 and you're guaranteed 30. Anyways, for the market, okay, we saw something very crazy that was going on. The market was on a very nice uptrend. It was pushing. I was saying I thought SPY was going to hit about 609 to 610, 609 at the bare minimum before we could see a potential rug pull because of this rising wedge. That's what I said. Instead, we came just short of 609 and we started to lose this lower trend line right over here, which led to a break to the downside. And this happened as soon as Donald Trump has announced that he wants to say more things about tariffs next week. So that is what caused this temporary rug pull in the markets. And Donald Trump is now going to be affecting the way that this volatility perpetuates. So we'll talk more about the charts. Just keep in mind that the market was in the green. We saw SPY, the QQQ, and all these different companies pumping, especially big tech. Only Nvda managed to close in the green, but the majority of tech stocks were in the red. Looking at Amzn, Apple, Tesla saw a big dump. Tesla was wild. This thing pumped to $380 a share. And then after the tariff news came out, we saw Tesla get a huge rug pull all the way down to the 350s. It's currently there, down 3% for the day. So the market got this huge rug pull. What on earth is going on? Well, Donald Trump has said that he will be announcing reciprocal tariffs next week. And this is very important. The reason it's important is because he believes that, and this is his opinion, that he wants to make sure that the US is treated equally. He wants to make things even with other countries, and he does not want any more or any less. That's what Donald Trump said, and I quote. And when asked about this, the Prime Minister of Japan was actually asked a very interesting question. They asked if Japan would retaliate if Donald Trump and his administration ended up increasing tariffs on them. They gave no answer. They said they have to just wait and see. They can't give a premature answer quite yet. So this is very important. Donald Trump believes that for fairness, he has to continue to do what's very necessary. He believes that this is what's important because of the U.S. trade deficits that happen between many different countries. That's his opinion. It's up to you guys to determine if you support this or not. I will respect your opinion, but what's done is done, and it's still going to affect things. Now, Donald Trump and Elon Musk have both said that the tariffs may cause a short-term disruption, right? Elon Musk said the same thing, that Trump's tariff plans could cause short-term pain for consumers. We all can agree on that, right? We know that this is going to cause prices to go up and factors just like that. But the question is, why on earth is this affecting the markets? What's going to happen from this point on? So just know that the US is dependent on Canada, Mexico, and China for almost half of their trade, right? For China, the 10% tariffs have been imposed, besides one thing that Trump did, which is that he just announced that he wants to change things a little bit because of the fact that we are seeing a little bit of shift in policy. So he just announced that he wants to pause tariffs on small packages in China that are under $800. That's going to be important for some businesses. But besides that, the majority of those 10% tariffs are still in place. But anyways, going back, okay, the Chinese tariffs are in place. The Canadian and Mexico ones were about to come, but then they negotiated, and Donald Trump got Canada and Mexico to agree to increase border security and do things like that. So he made sure that they were held accountable on different things like that. That's his opinion. And then with that happening, we ended up seeing the tariffs being delayed on those countries. So it just goes to show that sometimes these could also be used for negotiation tactics. So that's always a possibility as well. But moving forward, just keep in mind that the US trades a lot with Mexico. That's actually one of our number one trade partners. Then there's Canada and China. We depend on Mexico for imports when it comes to food, not to mention automakers and a bunch of factors like that. And then for Canada, we depend a lot on them for crude oil. So crude oil, natural gas, petroleum, we depend on Canada. For China, we depend on them for manufacturing factors just like that. So these tariffs are going to be coming soon, but they're delayed for Mexico and Canada. Now, we also trade a lot with Germany, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, the the UK and India, and then more European Union countries. You guys can see a lot of them. So this goes to show how important this is going to be. I'm looking for some reports out there. We saw Peter Navarro, who highlighted that the US has particular partners that the Trump administration could be looking at. So we are seeing some high trade deficits, according to Navarro, between the EU and the US, and then also with, I think, possibly like India, and then Thailand, Taiwan, and Vietnam. And then other targets could be like Japan and Malaysia, but they're not as big on the priority list. Donald Trump also announced that there's a possibility that we could be imposing a flat 10 or 20% universal tariff. That could be a possibility, but they're still looking into that. So we'll have to see how that ends up going. We're still waiting for a lot of ifs and buts on this. So what does this all mean in a nutshell? Here's what's going on, guys. Okay. The 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada have been delayed. These are delayed at least thus far. So just keep that in mind. Okay, but they're going to come eventually. They will come eventually. They're just delayed for the time being. The 10% tariffs on China have been imposed, but some products are not included, such as like packages under $800. And at least they're just delayed for the time being. So there's some delays to that. And then the next things in Donald Trump's administration's minds could be India, the European Union countries, Thailand, Taiwan, and Vietnam. Those could be the next potential targets based off the current deficits that Trump has talked about. And then we also have Japan and Malaysia as other targets. So please keep that in mind. We're adding to the list. More and more countries will be impacted, which will impact like a lot of our trade, computer parts, semiconductors, and the list goes on as we depend on a lot of these different countries. And it's going to be affecting food, all these different things. So what is bad about this? At least for the short term, this will be negative for the GDP. Once again, we do depend a lot on these countries, and if we continue to increase tariffs like this, it will cause our GDP to slow down. Inflation is going to go up. Prices will obviously go up. Both Donald Trump and Elon Musk have said this, and we could, obviously see how this is disrupting a lot of different markets. On top of this, there's also other examples of how, like, when Trump won, because of the fear of tariffs going up, we're starting to see the prices of lots of Italian wines going up. So that's just an example of how some prices are already starting to go up because of fears involving all of this. So, this could cause higher inflation for the short term. That does not mean prices will go down later on. It just means that for the short term, for the next 3 to 6 months after the tariffs are imposed, prices could start to go up at a faster rate before they start to slow down the rate at which they go up. So what I mean is, for the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years, inflation will continue to remain around 2% or higher, give or take, depending on factors. But there are certain periods where inflation is higher for a year or lower for a year, right? So we're going to be looking for a higher inflationary period for a temporary period of time if these tariffs are imposed. And then other countries may also try to increase tariffs back on the US. The Prime Minister of Japan was just asked about this, if they're going to do the same thing. They haven't given an answer yet. But you guys can see that when Donald Trump announced tariffs on like Mexico and Canada had plans to increase tariffs back on the US on about $100 billion worth of goods. They announced that in case the tariffs were imposed, right? Obviously, they got delayed, so everything is delayed for now, but it just goes to show how this could affect prices and what ends up happening. This will also hurt businesses, causing more bankruptcies. It may even incentivize businesses for the longer term to eventually start producing more in the US, but it's going to take time to do that because the US does not have all the comparative advantages. The US is not number one when it comes to manufacturing everything. We depend a lot on China, on Vietnam, on more affordable labor and things just like that. So because we don't have as many alternatives for the short term, prices could go up pretty quickly, causing lots and lots of pain. So that's a short-term con. These are the short-term cons, short-term consequences of this. What does this mean for the longer term? Donald Trump and his team would argue for fairness because of the trade deficits. He argues that the U.S. is getting screwed over and that this is necessary. He argues that this will help increase governmental revenue, help the government make hundreds of billions of dollars more. This is actually dependent on how much these other countries increase tariffs on us. But yes, the government will be making hundreds of billions of dollars more per year. And if they start investing this money back into the US, this could help offset our GDP losses and factors just like that. It could also try, and this is what Trump's aim is, to decrease the federal income tax rates. That's what Trump is trying to do. We'll see about that. It all depends on different factors if this will end up, going as planned or not. Another thing you have to consider is that what if these countries don't want to trade as much with the US, causing prices to go up and supply chains getting disrupted? It could also affect how much revenue the government makes, which thus will affect if they can truly decrease taxes a lot or less. So you have to take all of that into account. It's very complicated. That's why I don't have an answer when asked, do I think it's worth it? I don't really have an answer. It depends how much revenue does the government make? Do other countries end up trading more with the US or less? What happens with all these other factors? There's so many puzzle pieces to really look into. This could also be used as a negotiation tactic, as seen in Canada and Mexico. So we'll see if Trump is going to try to negotiate with India, with the with the EU, with Thailand to try to cause something different. We'll have to see about all these ifs and buts. But there is fear right now that there's going to be more tariffs, which will affect American businesses. Keep that in mind, especially for those Asian countries that help us out with producing our computers, semiconductors, and the list goes on. We have to be very, very careful. That's going to be very important. On top of this, there's been some talk about how Trump's tariffs could also cause home prices to go up, at least to some extent, considering that we do depend a lot on Canada, Mexico, and China for many different like parts. So I'm seeing a lot of news about this, and this is leading to some fears about the markets because of the short-term negative consequences. Is it worth it? My job is not to tell you if it's worth it or not. I'm just here to tell you what the pros and cons are. That's up to you to decide if you think it's worth it. Is it worth it for us to get more revenue to try to offset some of the pain that's coming, or will it not be worth it if it leads to like more disruptions? It's up to you guys. I'm just here to tell you guys the facts. With that being said, we also have McDonald's announcing earnings on Monday, Shopify and Coca-Cola on Tuesday alongside Supermicro. On Wednesday, we have CVS, Reddit, and a few more. And then Thursdays when we have Coinbase and a few more like DraftKings. And then Fridays when we have Moderna. That's it for earnings. For data, just know that there's nothing on Monday. Tuesday, we have Jerome Powell giving a testimony, so it might cause somewhat of a move if he says something significant. Wednesday is when we have CPI data coming out, so expect some high volatility. We'll see what CPI looks like. We're expecting the numbers to be very similar. A slight increase month over month, though, so we'll see about that. And then Thursday, we have PPI, followed by Friday. There's not really much coming out. So we have CPI coming out. That's going to be very important. Get ready for that. With that being said, what's happening to the markets? Well, it depends on what the big guy Donald Trump ends up announcing. Is he going to be announcing a 10% flat tariff on all these different countries? Is he going to be announcing higher tariffs? Is he going to be delaying them? Or we need to see more details to really understand this. But as of right now, okay, we're getting a break from this wedge. Every time SPY has hit 608 to 610 historically, we've gone rejections, 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 rejections. And whenever we get those rejections, we typically drop either to 602 or all the way down towards like the 590s. So there's a good chance we do dip a little bit lower depending on what the big guy ends up announcing. So we have to wait and see what he says. There could be a little rebound on Monday before it starts to dip lower. If 600 fails us, I think we dipped to about 595, so keep that in mind. If not, lower back down to where the support is. So we'll be watching to see where we end up dipping to before some buyers try to defend. On the QQQ, same thing. We have this resistance around the 530s, 530 to 533. We've seen a lot of rejections. Our main support is going to be at 517, not to mention 507. As of right now, if we can't get back above 525, we're going to be at risk of dipping to like 517. Could be a bigger dip on the QQQ depending on what Donald Trump ends up announcing. For the Russell, same thing. Although there's this inverse head and shoulders like structure, this could dip lower if we can't reclaim 227. This is going to be at risk of dipping even lower now, all the way back down to 223 or below. For ES, we have this rising wedge rejection. We got to hold 60-40. If not, we could be dipping all the way down to the low 6,000s. For NQ, we're dipping right here. We got to try to hold above 21,500. If not, we could be dumping all the way down to 21,380. For a few more, I'm just going to go over a couple of them in this video, guys. I will go over a lot more details by like Saturday and Sunday. Nvidia remains very resilient unless Donald Trump announces more changes to like Taiwan. So we'll see about that. As long as we're above 125.58, this is technically on an uptrend, trying to get back up to 130, then 132. But for now, we have to wait and see what he announces. This could still affect Nvidia to cause a dip. We'll see. So I'm going to be very cautious with this. As long as we're above 127, we technically favor the upside direction for the 130s. We'll see if this lasts or not. For Tesla, we're on a bit of a downtrend getting these rejections. Unfortunately, Tesla lost 363, which is a bad sign. The tariffs could affect Tesla big time, so we'll see about this. What they end up announcing, this news is not the best for them. Their Chinese sales also declined. There's a lot of headlines about that. There's some gaps to fill on Tesla all the way down towards like the 345 area. So we could be dipping to 350 to 345 if this continues to fall, unfortunately. The news is not the best for Tesla, so it is what it is. I was hoping Tesla would bounce, and we did get a bounce to 380, but we were not able to hold it after this news came out. So unfortunately, Tesla remains a bit more bearish. Apple, I think Apple's looking more bearish because we have to watch it if 226 holds. Um, we might retest this. If it doesn't hold, we could be dipping to about 222. For a few more, I'm not going to go over everything today, guys. It is Friday. AMD could be dipping to about 105. If that doesn't hold us, we're looking for the low 100s. Amazon, let's go over some big tech stocks. Amazon looks a little bearish. We need to try to get back above 230. If 230 does not hold, so if we like bounce and reject, and if 230 doesn't hold, we could be dipping back down towards like 224. So please keep that in mind. For Meta, we're kind of slowing here. We want to hold above our key support. Otherwise, it could be retesting 704. So please be careful and watch to see if it holds, especially as we have some wicks forming above. Microsoft could be dipping to about 408. We got to hold this. If not going to be looking too good. We're going to be at risk of dipping to like 405 or below. And then Google's not looking too good. We're losing 189. We got to reclaim 189. If not, we're dipping to 183. Then eventually this gap fill back down to like 178. So the whole market is taking a hit because of this tariff news that came out, unfortunately. My call of the market trying to push higher was correct. We did temporarily push higher. We were just not able to sustain the levels after the tariff news came out. I'm not a genie. I can't always foresee what Donald Trump is going to say or what news comes out. Sometimes unexpected things can happen. So it is what it is, guys. The market is likely going to see some more downside. I'll keep you guys updated if Donald Trump says anything else about the tariffs over the weekend. And then we'll also see what happens by next week when Donald Trump officially makes these big announcements. Will he be raising tariffs on the EU? Will it be India, Japan, Taiwan, Vietnam, these countries we depend on for trade? We'll have to see about it. It's going to be very, very big. Yes, one or two countries might not be that crazy, but might not be that insane. But if you have a bunch of them together, that's going to make a much bigger percentage of our imports that end up coming in. So that's going to be a lot more impactful for our GDP and factors just like that. So keep that in mind, guys. It's going to be affecting American businesses, and get ready. We'll see what Donald Trump says as time goes on. I'll keep you guys updated by tomorrow. Thank you for listening. Have a good one, and peace out.